Hey guys! Alright, so this video I wanted to talk about, I guess just my philosophy about magic and witchcraft and where I've been and where I'm going and just sort of an orientation to how I approach this thing we call the craft. So, yeah, I basically wanted to make this because I realized that though I've made various videos about where I've come from magically, I haven't ever really put it all together and been like, this is where I've been, and now this is where I am now because of that. Because I have made progress and I've changed the way I think about certain things. So I really just want to reflect that and also to give you guys some context for the things that I'll be doing in the future. And at the end, I haven't decided if I'm going to do this at the end or in a different video. Probably depends on how long this gets. But at some point, I'm going to do a little bit of a show and tell of things that I'd either like to review in the future or that I plan to show you in the future, or also maybe some things, some topics for videos that I have in the future, given this context that I'm about to give you. So I do have some notes. I'll probably look down at them occasionally. But so I guess platform number one in my witchy journey was, as I've talked about before, women who run with the wolves. That was stage one. And I don't think that this is progressive, by the way. I don't think that I've learned more and gone farther. I actually think that it's more of a circle and that I've been coming back around to women who run with the wolves. And in some ways I've never left it. And I don't think I ever will leave it. I think it's still one of the most fundamental and powerful witchy books I've ever read and probably will ever read. So, yeah, I liked it because it was about stories and the magic that stories carry, both in an archetypal sense. So, like our psychology, like, what is Baba Yaga and Vasilisa? What does that story tell us about the archetypes that we have, about who we are? And about like how our psychology works, but also like what meaning does that story carry over time throughout the ages? What meanings can we see that women in the past were trying to give us today based on the fact that we have those stories? So I liked both aspects. I liked that she approached it in a way that was both psychological and anthropological, that we can see how these stories have actually come down to us and have meaning that is really encoded from prior generations and given to us. Sometimes, like she says, we have to do a little work to find that meaning, figure out like what it is we're supposed to be getting out of it when we're working with a folktale or a story. But that meaning is there, and I still love that approach. So that approach is still very much me, I would say. I also, platform two, I guess, was goddess worship or goddess veneration, particularly the goddesses Persephone or the goddess Persephone and later the goddess Morrigan. So I was initially drawn to Persephone. I'm not really sure how I found Persephone. I think maybe I first encountered her on a Papios blog post, and I encountered some sort of rewrites of her story. But I also remember assigning some poems about Persephone in a class that I did, which was called Literary History, and I assigned the original Ovid telling, or I'm not sure if that's the original, but it was, I know that was a very early telling, was Ovid's retelling of that myth in the Metamorphoses, and of the myth of Persephone's abduction by Hades. So yeah, I taught that, and I taught Louise Gluck's poems about Persephone. A couple. I think maybe just one. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many there are actually, but I think that she. Sorry, my cat is photobombing. You're gonna get to see Leo's little face. Oh, there's a Leo face. Bye bye, Leo. Go down there. Anyway, so I think she might have written more than one, but I taught one, and I taught another poem by a poet that I can't remember. And if I do remember her name, I'll put a link to that poem on the video as well. But the whole class was about these retellings, particularly like these feminist retellings of stories, and this one in particular was really powerful to me because people have such different ideas about what that story means. You can think about it as an abduction story and a rape story, and I don't think that we should erase those meanings or make them go away, because I do think that they're there, and that is like what the original story was about. So that would be to like sanitize the story in a way that would be actually really problematic. But I also think that if you think about the fact that this story was written a long time ago when people didn't necessarily account for women's sexual agency or like choice, then it also makes a lot of sense to think about like, sorry, this is definitely going to get a little rambly about Persephone now that I've gone there. But I think it definitely makes a little sense to think about how she maybe could have made this choice for herself, and how her life really could be a very complicated one. And that was the aspect of Persephone that I was particularly drawn to, was the aspect of her life that was just really like about duality and complication, and in some ways like living two very different, very separate lives with two very different people, her mother, Demeter, and her husband, Hades. And her life is just so divided. And that really interested me. Like, how do you live a divided life? How do you live it in a way that makes sense to you, and center yourself and your own agency within all that? And so anyway, I was initially drawn to her for those reasons. And I was drawn to the goddess Morgan, like, beyond, in a way that I don't necessarily know how to account for. I never really planned on venerating her, but I read a book by Courtney Weber. I forget what the title is, but it's like one of the very popular books about the Morgan, because John Beckett had recommended it, a book that was good for people who were interested in venerating personified deities. And so particularly like in a sort of like hard polytheistic way where it's like this deity is like real, which I was interested in. I wasn't sure if I was that kind of worshiper, but I was interested in checking it out. So after reading that book, I got into the Morgan. Particularly was drawn to her, I think, because of her association with dreams, which have always been really powerful for me. I've always had very weird dreams from a super early age. I still have a dream that I remember from when I was probably like 3 or 4, where a lady in a red dress gets out of a carriage. She looks kind of like Betty Boop, and there was just this aura of like menace about the whole dream. And sometimes now I think, like, could that have been some like dark goddess that was calling to me at an early age? I have no idea. I really don't know. But at any rate, could that even have been the Morgan? Not sure. But at any rate, I've always been very interested in dreams. I still record my dreams. I try my best to remember them as soon as I wake up. So I think I was attracted to her partly for that. But yeah, I got into her very quickly, and that's still going on. But so I also, around that same time, I got into just Wiccan holidays, like the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. Or I'm not even sure that we should call it the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. I think it's just sort of neo-pagan general Wheel of the Year. Because I think pretty much all of us kind of, in some way, observe it, or in some way, and that may be too reductive. I'm sure there are people who don't like venerate the Wheel of the Year in the way it's constructed, but what I mean is that everybody probably knows what those are. It's a very general reference point. Anyway, I got very into those at the beginning. It was a really good way for me to like connect with nature, and to start just venerating like the cycles, the cycle of the year. And I remember my first one was Lunasa, and that one was when I was leaving England. Like I talked about in my earlier video, that first trip to England where I got witchy. My first holiday that I knew of was Lunasa. So it was in August, and when I got back, I celebrated Mabon as my first holiday. So that was pretty fun. And it was a very accessible first holiday. Like, it was not hard to figure out because it's sort of structured like Thanksgiving. so now I've come around to where I am now, which is that I'm, I guess, leaning a little bit less. One thing I was going to mention that I forgot was that I got very involved with a group, a Unitarian group, which is also how I ended up reading John Beckett. Sorry, this is a bit of a windy story. I hope you guys have patience with that. But yeah, I got involved with a Unitarian group in Brooklyn, a CUPS, Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans group. And I actually got very involved very fast. And this tends to happen to me. I tend to show up at something. And within like 2 weeks, I'm like a co-leader of it. And I kind of like that. I kind of like, obviously it's a great privilege and a great gift to have, to find myself in this position of leading. But it also can be like a lot. And it was a little bit from, like, I believe it was a little bit much, a little bit too soon for me. Like I took this on before I fully knew what I was taking on. And I got into planning ritual very quickly. Like I was planning public rituals, and I had barely done my own rituals. And yeah, I don't think it was bad. I think it was like a trial by fire, and it was kind of like a real galvanizing experience. It taught me a lot about how to plan ritual, and it taught me a lot, particularly about the difference between public ritual and private ritual, and the different considerations that you have when you're planning for a group, a large group, a potentially large group, and a group that may be very heterogeneous. There may be lots of different people with lots of different backgrounds who, and you can't assume very much about like any sort of common background or interest or anything really. So like that was super interesting and super fun. Really, I made a lot of good friends who I'm still friends with. And we still occasionally do ritual, and we still really like doing that. But yeah, I think that definitely, I got a little bit burned out, and I think I was planning things that I wasn't fully ready to do magically. And so where I am now is I'm really taking it back to the personal journey, you know? So I always want my YouTube channel to reflect that and to be about that and to show where I'm going personally. So like, and I hope also to help others, because I hope that you guys can resonate with aspects of this, and also hopefully resonate with some of the reflections that I'm able to bring out about, you know, about my own path, and you know, how we can all follow our own paths, whatever those are, with even more integrity and like authenticity. So yeah. So anyway. What I'm doing now is taking it back to like, what is my personal philosophy? What is my personal practice? And I think that those are two related but also different things. And I'm struggling to like not get too hung up on the philosophy. Because if you know anybody who does a lot of research or is just a big nerd like I am, this can be a problem, you know, like you get so into reading about something that you forget that you actually need to go do it, you know. So I'm really trying not to fall into that rabbit hole this time. And it can also become a lot of pressure. I think I've internalized some of that because of my Christian background, my very conservative and fundamentalist in some ways Christian background. And like the idea in particular that you need to know what you believe, and that religion or that spirituality is about belief. And I think a lot of Wiccans and a lot of witches and pagans would disagree with that. I think that for us, a lot of this is about practice. And so I definitely want my spirituality to be partly about practice. So, you know, that's why I don't want to fall into the belief philosophy rabbit hole. But at any rate, I do want to say a little bit about what my philosophy and interests are right now. So my interests practically are going toward more of what I think of as traditional witchcraft, and what seems to be reflected in books as traditional witchcraft. Like the kinds of things that interest me tend to be in the books that are labeled like traditional witchcraft. So this is one book that I just got from the library. It's The Crooked Path by Kelvin, and this is an introduction to, the subtitle is an introduction to traditional witchcraft. So yeah, I have really enjoyed reading this so far. This is not going to be, in any way a full review of that book. I just wanted to say that I am reading it and enjoying it. I'm really enjoying, some things I'm really enjoying about it are the emphasis on animism and spirits, like I talked about in my Honoring Your Ancestors review video. That's definitely something that I'm really interested in these days, is religion that's not only based in nature, but like that sees nature as animate, having spirits, and that in general reveres spirits and ancestors at least as much as it does like gods or goddesses. And yeah, so I'm interested in that these days. I have been more interested in the kinds of practices that they talk about, like witch bottles and charms, and just the way they talk about ritual, the kind of like more ecstatic, more improvisational. That's some of the words that Kelvin uses to describe it. And that really suits me. I have never been one who liked to or wanted to write a whole big thing and then recite it. Though I actually did recite a whole monologue that I gave as Persephone recently, so and that was awesome. I'm not knocking that experience, but when I'm doing ritual for myself, I like it to be like more improvisational. But yeah, so I definitely like a lot of the things that he talks about. I also like that it seems more based in America, and it seems more relevant sometimes to me because of that. Because that is the one problem I've had in the past relating to Hellenistic or like Celtic pantheons, is that they're not here. And in fact, so much of particularly Celtic spirituality is based in like particular streams or particular mounds or whatever, that like it can sometimes feel hard to relate to those gods and goddesses because of that. So anyway, I like that it feels very related to the history and culture and like land of the place that I actually live. So that seems really relevant and cool. The one thing that I have a problem with about the traditional witchcraft sort of path is more the cosmology of it. Like, and I don't think that there's in any way like a set cosmology or anything like that, but I have seen in more than one book the idea of like the witch father and the witch mother, or the witch, I forget what they call it in Besom, Stang, and Sword, which is another book I read about traditional witchcraft. I think it's maybe the witch lore and the witch queen. But to me, those like archetypal type, like sort of head witch figures, I don't know, they don't resonate as much as like gods or goddesses, or yeah, I don't know, like I haven't decided how I feel about them. So maybe I'll come around, I don't know. And I think my hesitancy also reflects something that is, you'll see probably with me in the future, which is that I'm a Pisces. So I'm often very indecisive. I often really desperately like want and need to keep an open mind. It's something that's like very important to me philosophically and like ethically, to keep an open mind and not to ever say like I am this and so I block myself off from all of this other stuff. So that's not what I'm trying to do. Like I don't want to block myself off and say I'm only this. I just want to give myself like categories so that I can structure my reading and my research and my practice. So and so that I can like strategize and know what to read next, because otherwise I would just be completely overwhelmed. Oh, and if you know any good traditional witchcraft books, I would love to see comments and recommendations about that down below, for sure. The last thing I wanted to say, well, not the last thing, but a couple last things. One thing is that I have been trying to sort of recover parts of my Christianity, and so there's this book. I'll show you this one. This is The Way of the Rose. I may do a review of this. I haven't decided. If you have opinions, you should comment on my Instagram reels, because I asked like which book would everybody want me to review. So if you have an opinion, like go there and say that. It's my first time doing that, so fun stuff. And the subtitle of this is The Radical Path of the Divine Feminine Hidden in the Rosary. And that sounded very interesting to me, and it was even more interesting than what I thought it was going to be. Because it really makes this case for the Virgin Mary and mainly for the Virgin Mary as this sort of, I don't know, not archetypal, but like as this sort of all-mother figure, you know, this like overarching like mother, and that she's like called by many names, and sort of like the idea of the goddess, you know, as this general figure. And I really thought that was very interesting. And yeah, I don't want to like get into my total thoughts about it because I could totally go down a rabbit hole right now. But I definitely like the idea that there is this great mother and that she's also like associated with nature, and that like we should like revere her because we revere the earth, and that praying in this like trance-like way can sort of bring us closer to the divine for sure. I think it's going to be hard for me to figure out how to mesh all of that with what I currently believe and practice. And if anybody has ideas or thoughts, again, comment, because I think it's also complicated for me because I have worked with saints and I do continue to work with saints. Those Catholic or Christian figures would be both general and specific. Like I think of them as specific people, but also I can see the appeal of this like more general view. Another thing is that I'm very much still interested in community. So I am really trying to find something like a tradition or a coven or something like that to be a part of. So that is like driving some of the research I'm doing. I'm interested in, I've been interested in the past in maybe looking into druidry, though I'm not completely sure about that. I just really want to be part of something. And I think that it can be really hard when you're a solitary practitioner because, the reverence of the Morrigan or the reverence of like Celtic deities. I mean, I think it is very much alive and that there are many, many people who are revering these people, these goddesses and divine figures, but at the same time, there's no like prescribed way. There's no way that someone is going to be able to tell you like, here, do this, and it will like work. And I kind of want that sometimes, and I don't think that that's necessarily bad. I think it's okay to want structure, and it's okay to want guidance. Like, looking back at my time in UU, I love the Unitarian Church, but it is so radically open that it can feel really overwhelming. And not that I ever want someone to tell me what to believe, because I think that that's toxic and like completely unnecessary. Everyone should believe what they organically want to believe and do believe. Like, there's not even a want to there. It's just, what do you like believe and practice and do with your life, you know? It's just a personal, not even choice, but a personal path. But I like practice. I think that with an established tradition comes an established practice that actually can teach you so much, you know? So like living traditions and existing traditions, I think that I could learn so much from a tradition, and so I really want to find one. So that is also driving much of my search right now. The final thing I wanted to say is that I have been very interested in learning more about practices that have syncretized aspects of like indigenous religion or African religion with Christianity. So like the African traditional religions I've been very interested in, and I've been watching a lot of Shamanic Arawak Priestess's videos. If anybody knows her, I'm sure a lot of people know her. She's amazing and like so established and like so great and knowledgeable. But yeah, I've been listening to her, and Not that I would ever like indiscriminately like draw on those traditions or anything like that, but I just really like learning more, and I like learning because I, you know, come from a Christian background, and have tried to recover aspects of that for myself. I definitely am interested in seeing how whole cultures and religions have syncretized practices in this way. It's just really fascinating to me, and really like such a powerful testament of like the strength of those traditions, and the strength of those like spirits, you know, of the Orishas, for instance. So yeah, so like I said before, you know, that is not my practice, but it's something I'm really interested in learning more about. So anyway, these are some things I am going toward in the future. So let's just transition to things I'm going to be reading in the future. So I've already told you guys about Crooked Path and The Way of the Rose, but I also wanted to mention this one, The Spirit of the Celtic Gods and Goddesses. This one is so great. I would love to do a review video for that, so if you're interested, you know, let me know on Instagram. And also, I really want to, I have requested at the library Willis Dorsey's new book on voodoo. So I believe it's called Orishas, Goddesses, and Voodoo Queens. And also, I requested a book about Marie Laveau. I cannot remember the title, but I will put that, or the author, but I will put it in the notes. So anyway, I'm really excited about all these books. And clearly there's like a lot of diverse stuff that I'm interested in right now, and a lot of different areas that I'm interested in reading more about. So yeah, so that is pretty much in the research area. And now in the area of practice and future YouTube videos, I wanted to say that in the future I'm planning to do a series called Crafty Witch. So the Crafty Witch series is going to be explicitly based on like material practices that I'm going to learn to do as a witch. So some of it might be like candle magic, some of it might be like making charm bags or something like that. I am about to move to Long Island and have a yard, so some of it might be like very outdoorsy stuff, like actually using plants in ways that I haven't been able to in the past, or maybe magic like with the bay, which is going to be like right next to me, Manhasset Bay. So yeah, so lots of exciting stuff in the future, and I'm definitely trying to focus on like beliefs and practice. So I hope that you guys who are watching will comment and stick with me and hold me accountable to that. So thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate you guys, and please comment and like and subscribe. Especially comment. I really love to see your comments, and I love to see that you're watching. So thank you for watching. Okay. Bye guys. Take care.